Ẹfúnṣetán Aníwúrà, the woman king, even Ààrẹ Látòṣà, the Ibadan feared military head, respected and feared her reach. But how? How did someone from Abeokuta become Iyalode, who carries the command of a king in Ibadan? If you are the one that love history, here you will learn the fascinating history. It all started in the early 19th century. Yoruba land trembled beneath the weight of war. Old cities like Oyo and Ijebu faced crumbling thrones, and people fled ancestral home in search of safety. Amidst this collapse, Ikija, a small Egba town near Abeokuta, was home to a girl who would later shake the roots of Ibadan power. Her name, Ẹfúnṣetán, born to Ogunrin, a warrior and chieftain, and a mother whose name fades into history, but whose tradecraft's life on through her daughter, Ẹfúnṣetán. Ẹfúnṣetán's story began not in a palace, but in muddy market and smoky bush paths. She was not a princess born with a crown, but a daughter of hustle and hardship, modeled by the instability of her world. Her father's prestige may have offered her protection, but it was her mother's basket of waters and unshakable will that taught young Ẹfúnṣetán how to survive. This was an era where women carried more than children on their back. They carried the future of the people on their head and hearts.
Thanks for watching. Kindly smash the subscribe button. Also, like and on the notification button for latest update. Thanks.
From an early age, Ẹfúnṣetán accompanied her mother to markets scattered across Egba land, Ikija, Itokun, even down to Epe and Ilaro. These were not mere errands, they were lessons in economy, negotiation and dignity. She watched as her mother bartered yam for tobacco, traded soap for clothes, and navigated the sharp tongues of male-dominated stores with the elegance of a lioness in human form. While other girls were told to be quiet and obedient, Ẹfúnṣetán was watching the pattern of commerce like a chessboard. She listened, she learned, and she began to plot her future, not as a wife or concubine, but as a force of wealth. What the world around her dismissed as woman's work, she understood as power. Markets were the battlefield, words were weapons, and the prize was autonomy in a world designed to silence her. These early market days were the training ground for an empress of economy. Ibadan, in the mid-1800s, was a city still defining itself, formed by warriors and refugees. It was a military city, young, aggressive, and ambitious. It had no ancient crown like Oyo, but it had fire. When the Ẹfúnṣetán family migrated to this city, they entered a melting pot of culture and power seekers. For many, Ibadan was chaos, but for Ẹfúnṣetán, it was opportunity. Here, she began building from the ground up. She observed warlord and merchants. She studied what goods were most in demand, and she carved her place in a society that had no place ready for her. As male chiefs fought over territory and titles, She built quiet influence through trade routes and alliance. She was never just a trader, she was a strategist. Her operation began small, but her vision was vast. Ibadan will never forget her name, not because she shouted it, but because she moved in silence and left echo. By her late 20s, Ẹfúnṣetán was no longer the daughter of Ogunrin. She was now her own pillar. Her business was flourishing and her name was whispered in markets with a mix of fear and respect. She was not yet the Yalode, not yet the ruler of 2,000 slaves, but the foundation was laid. She had mastered the language of trade, the art of leadership, and the quiet war of gender. Ibadan will see many warlords come and go, but Ẹfúnṣetán was building something none of them could match. An empire born not from bloodshed, but from vision. And though her heart had not yet been broken, and her spirit not yet hardened, her ambition had already lighted the first flame of legend. The girl from Ikija was rising, not through marriage, not through birthright, but through sheer will, and history was watching. By the mid-19th century, Ibadan had become a militarized powerhouse in Yoruba land, where success was often had through the warlord, but one woman chose a different weapon: commerce. Ẹfúnṣetán Aníwúrà, already a respected trader, began expanding her reach with the precision of a general. Her fingers stretched across industries: tobacco farm, local cloth called kijipa, palm oil, food crop, and European imports. She traded cowries for copper, soap for silk, pepper for gunpowder. Her enterprise became so vast that Ibadan war general turned to her, not just for supplies, but for loan of arms and ammunition. She was no longer trading in market alone, she was bankrolling wars, indirectly shaping the future of the city. In a world where men saw war as the key to power, Ẹfúnṣetán proved that wealth could command warriors without drawing a single blade. Behind her booming trade was a dark foundation: slavery. The brutal engine of 19th century wealth. Ẹfúnṣetán is said to have owned over 2,000 slaves, many of whom worked on her expensive farmlands. They were not minor backyards. These were agricultural factories, producing food and tobacco in industrial volume. Others served as domestic aid, artisan, trader, even an armed guard trained to protect her estate. She maintained a private labor force, a workforce so large and loyal that some compared her to a monarch. But this was a kingdom forged from commerce and corruption. Was she a woman merely using the tools of her time, or one who wielded exploitation to maintain control? It is a question that history struggled to answer cleanly. What is clear is that her empire was efficient, ruthless, and respected.
Thanks for watching. Kindly smash the subscribe button. Also, like and on the notification button for latest update. Thanks.
Ẹfúnṣetán didn't just dominate Ibadan, she reached beyond borders. Her caravan moved across Yoruba land into Port Novo, Badagry, Ikorodu, and part of present-day Benin Republic. She traded with Europeans and other African coastal elites from the inland farm to Atlantic ports. Her influence stretched like woven clothes, intricate, wide, and resilient. When goods arrived from Europe, mirror, rifles, liquor, clothes, they often passed through her hands before reaching local markets. She became a gatekeeper of modernity, deciding what item enter a society and at what price. This reach gave her power and just in Ibadan political space. But in regional diplomacy, where some men control soldiers, she controlled supply chain. Where some warlord made conquest, she made markets. By the height of her career, Ẹfúnṣetán was not just wealthy, she was an institution. Her home was a place in all but name, staffed with workers, guarded by armed slaves, and visited by both chiefs and clergy. Her wealth made her untouchable, even Ààrẹ Látòṣà. Ibadan feared military head, respected and feared her reach. But she never asked to be called queen. She never needed a throne. She was commerce incarnate. A living example that power could take a feminine form, not through softness, but through strategy, dominance. Yet beneath this rise lay tension. The more powerful she became, the more whisper grew. Was she building Ibadan or threatening its balance? In the political fabric of Yoruba society, where thrones were reserved for king and war title for men, there existed a title of quiet thunder, Iyalode. The Iyalode was no commercial figure, she was the official voice of all women, the female counterpart to the war chief, and a critical player in many town inner circle. In Ibadan, that honor fell to Ẹfúnṣetán Aníwúrà. In the 1860s, by this time, her wealth had already established her as force. But this appointment sealed her as the most powerful woman in the city. The Iyalode did not beg for a seat in the council. She had one by right. She attended town deliberation, advised on trade policy, mediated disputes, and often countered the voice of male chiefs. With logic, fire, or silence in a city built by warrior, her word carried weight equal to sword. What made Ẹfúnṣetán unique was not just that she held power, it was how she moved across world. She was a pillar in the town council and a patron of the Anglican Church, supporting Christian missions and even elevating her nephews into the clergy. She wore white lace in church on Sunday and iron-stoned wrappers in the council by Monday. Through this dual allegiance, she embodied a real duality: modern and tradition, sacred and strategy. She gave land to missionary, helped building prayer house, and welcomed preachers, yet still held ancestral rights in her compound where others chose side. She blended worlds. Some say it was political genius, others says it was survival. But to the people of Ibadan, she was both priestess and politician, a living paradox in an age of transformation. In a council meeting dominated by warlord, Ẹfúnṣetán stood unflinching. She debated with general, questioned spending on wars, and demanded attention to the welfare of Ibadan women and children. She didn't just advocate for trader or gender, she spoke on national security, land policy, taxation, and justice. In a city where decisions were often driven by ego and conquest, she offered calculation and caution. Her word could halt arguments. Her silence could unnerve an entire room. Some male chiefs resented her, others feared, but all knew no policy passed without the Yalode voice. As her status grew, people began calling her Oba Obirin.
Kindly subscribe, click the like button, also on the notification button to encourage me to do more research on Africa history, not just Yoruba. See you on the final episode. Thank you.